What's going on, everybody? A non-TCG. Want to have a conversation about 2025, and don't really want to talk about the state of the market. Everybody and their brother does a video on the state of the market and their picks for 2025. I want to talk about just general concepts and what I'm seeing in Pokemon and some of the changes. And this is just going to have the Excel here in the video. But what I want to do is I want to tell you guys a story. And I spent some time with a gentleman yesterday, and I'm super thankful for the amount of time that he gave me because dude's busy. But he has some contacts within different distributors and such, and we started talking about reprints, and obviously some of the reprints in the past have really damaged the brand and really damaged the confidence of the folks in the industry. And obviously the English printing of Pokemon is vastly different than Japanese, where Japanese they just print, but in the English printing there's an expectation of value and an expectation that Pokemon's not going to go Wizards of the Coast and just reprint shit into the ground. And we talked about Scarlet and Violet reprints, and he was of the opinion that they've effectively been cured of everything that they happened with COVID, and what we're seeing with a little bit of additional product coming to the market is really what the plan is. And he kind of elaborated, and I'm paraphrasing and adding some of my own thoughts to this. But I think going through COVID 2020, 2021, nobody had any idea what the fuck was going to happen, right? And given the amount of lead time it takes to set up the sets, the print runs, get the printers done, especially with some of the delays due to logistics and supply chain at that point in time, I think the Pokemon Company was shooting with their eyes closed, if you will. No different than most other industries in the world, except for the farm industry. So they saw that early on they didn't have enough product. Everybody's bored. Everybody had nothing to spend their money on, and there were fights in Walmart's, Targets, etc. So they increased print runs, and at that point you're basically forecasting the unknown, right? Something that hadn't happened since 1918. Completely different world, and they got it wrong. No different than everybody else did. And while the Pokemon Company loves money, the main concern was the brand itself. As everybody here should be aware, Pokemon is either the top or number 2 brand in the world, and you don't need to advance the brand per se with the TCG, but you can't damage it. And some of the damage or perceived damage to the brand that was caused with the reprints, dumping product, all of a sudden you have product selling on the open market under distribution price. It caused a little bit of a panic within Pokemon. Again, my words, not this gentleman's. And I think they learned their lesson, and it wasn't really a lesson to learn per se. It's you're trying to navigate a situation that's never happened before. You do your best with the knowledge that you have, and at that point in time, and the information was just wrong. So the last major reprint that we saw was end of 2023. You feel free to correct me, but I believe it was the end of 2023, and that would have been SV Base, Silver Tempest, and that would have been a reprint that was set up the end of 2022, early 2023. Really at the beginning of everything kind of returning to normal. So that would have had a lot of input through. I don't want to say the peak of COVID, but kind of toward the tail end where you see the graph starting to flatten out and the demand curve starting to go down. But there's really no way to anticipate a shift in the curve, if you will, for those of you who are educated in economics out there. So, I think as we look at Scarlet and Violet, and a lot of folks have said, when are the reprints coming from Surging Sparks, Twilight Masquerade, We just saw some additional product come to market for SV 2, 3, and 4. So Obsidian, Paradox Rift, Paldea Evolved. But it was a small amount, and it was through Pokemon Center. They were just moving product that they had in their inventory. We have confirmation of that, or I've gotten confirmation of that. But there's no main reprints coming, and I think part of that is the Pokemon Company's made a concerted effort to avoid downside and negative perception of the brand. And some of the moral hazard is, hey, you know what? There may not be that much supply in the market, or as much as they would like. The profitability may be a little bit lower in the near term, but in the long term, everybody's happy. You can still buy cheap singles if you want to play the game. And as the product has value, you're keeping your distribution network a little bit more healthy than it was before. And quite honestly, you have an opportunity to raise prices again. Going from $143 to $161 MSRP doesn't mean fuck all if the boxes aren't selling for MSRP. But if the boxes are at $161 and they're selling relatively frequently on Pokemon Center, they can increase the price to $174, $173, $168 and change, whatever the number ends up being. And nobody's going to bat an eye. But, when your boxes are selling for $90, $95 and you change the MSRP, there's absolutely no point in doing that. So, the situation that we're in, and, everybody says it's a bubble. It's not a bubble. It's not a bubble at all. And it's really, I don't want to say it's a perfect storm, but there's a couple different mechanics that are aligning in the market. The first of which is, the Pokemon Company is scared to death to put a massive dump on the market. They saw the amount of damage that they caused. They saw the amount of damage that they could have caused if it would have gotten worse during the pandemic, and they're not going to do that again. Because, as I mentioned, in the Japanese market, overseas market, people want the cards. It's a little bit less of a financial exercise. But in North America, if the cards don't have value, people aren't going to wipe their ass with them. You're going to have a handful of people. I shouldn't say handful, but you're going to have people that play the game. But if Pokemon doesn't have value, people are not going to buy the cards. They'll still buy the stuffed animals. They'll buy the shit because it's a toy. But then the cards have no value other than a collectible. And they know that. I mean, look, they've been doing this for almost 30 years now. They're one of the most highly educated companies on the planet. So let's put a pin in the supply part of the equation. Now let's move to the demand part of the equation. And, I have a graph up here, and I kind of want to show, this is Scarlet and Violet base. So this is kind of like just dead. And then all of a sudden it started moving up. And here, you have a reprint. If you go back in history, it's the same $85 to $95, whatever. Paldea Evolved again. You're under, this is your $100. So you're under $90 almost for 9 months from release all the way through April of 2024. And that's effectively the dead money era that was carryover from the tail end of COVID. And I want to lay this in here. And I really want to start talking about booster boxes. But on the demand side of the equation, everybody's familiar or should be familiar with Sword and Shield, where, early on the sets, quite honestly, they're kind of junk. Also, COVID prints, ton of them. And we have Battle Styles, which there's still over 20,000 boxes for sale on Pokemon Center. When I think Battle Style, it almost reminds me of the warehouses of MetaZoo junk product with Wilderness and UFO from their bankruptcy filing from a couple months ago, which is kind of interesting. But then you get to the newer stuff, and the newer stuff it's gone. It's sold out. So you see that as time passed, people went from, okay, Sword and Shield's gonna be great, to, well, there's a lot of product. It's it's not shitty. There's just a lot of it. So, whatever. To, as we got to the end, people started buying the product up, and Sword and Shield became, goated, if you will, and people loved it and people bought it. And then you saw a lot of the boxes. I mean, Evolving Skies moved up from the start. But you saw, Lost Origin go nuts. You saw, I remember I bought Chilling Reign and Astral Radiance for $85 a booster box off Card Shop Live. And, I've never been a huge Pokemon fan. I'm more of a Magic guy up until recently. And the reason why, I feel like I'm qualified for Pokemon is I don't really have an emotional attachment, so I can look at this from the business side and use my business background and kind of analyze the overall market here and to make informed decisions. But I mean, Chilling Reign's over $200 now. Um, Astral Radiance I think is 170. It's been up and down, but you see it's like dominoes falling, right? You see the first, second, third domino fall, and then you start to see one of the boxes, one of the sets starts to move up, and it gets everybody's attention. But Pokemon is one of the most inefficient markets, especially in the trading card game, that I've seen. In that information travels so slowly because a lot of folks, they're not on YouTube every day listening to Pokemon Finance. They're on TCG Player, and it just the dominoes fall slowly, and then as things move up, there's a little bit of a FOMO or panic where people are like, okay, well, yeah, I better buy this box now, or it's going to go up, and then they buy the box goes up, and they're like, oh shit, I better buy some more before it's too late. And the next thing you know, Pokemon Center sold out. All the distributors are sold out. There's not a whole lot of product out there. And, you basically end up where we're at today with, Fusion Strike over 350, Chilling Reigns pushing 250 or whatever the numbers are. Silver Tempest, which was printed to the ground a year and a half ago, is at $200 now. But we're in the super early stages of the exact same thing for Scarlet and Violet. And look, I've not played any video games. I probably should, doing what I'm doing here now, just to have a little bit more context. But, you look at that SV base, on the graph that I have here. You look how they evolved. These things were absolutely dead money for the longest time. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, you see one of the boxes start to move. And then, everything else started to move. You look here in April. April's really where Paldea Evolve started to move. And you get back here, it moved up a little bit for SV base, but it's still under 100. I mean, it didn't move till September. So you had Paldea Evolve move. Paradox was dead. Temporal. I bought 15 cases of Temporal on TCG Player in their last 13% sale, the one before this one. Shortly after it was out, and I think my net case price was like $530, which is right around distribution price for most people. So that thing was dead. Obsidian was dead. Paradox Rift was dead, and then Twilight came out, and I kind of thought things changed a little bit with Temporal Forces just because the pull rates got harder, and it didn't seem like there was that much product out on the market. And again, that could have just been me looking for what I wanted to see. And then Twilight came out and it started to move. And I remember watching it and it's like, I don't really know why it's moving, but it almost seemed like there was a concerted effort by some group of people to buy the Greninja up to get it moving. And that's really what changed everybody's perception for that set. And then Stellar came out and did well. Surgeon came out and obviously crushed it. And then, we're moving into Prismatic Evolutions. But now everybody's looking at the older sets, which, the products are all quality. But it's like, okay, well, in October 25th, this is part of the reason why I have this here. He had an SV base at $100. Paldea Evolved at 136 now. This 136 was down a little bit because this is right when the restock came. Obsidian 130. This is a little bit of a tighter print run than everything else, but it's, in my view, is the worst set. Paradox 114, Temporal 122, 167 for Twilight. Stellar was 107. Surging was 145. You look at today, you're up 22% on SV base, 10% on Paldea Evolved. And this is really just in a 2-month period, pallets of product dumped on the market from Pokemon Center, bought up and back to normal and getting close to a new high. And by the way, nothing showing up on Pokemon Center for most of these because they've all gone out to distribution. Obsidian Flames is flattish, but you can still get this at distribution, this in Paradox. Paradox Rift up 8%, Temporal up 10%. Now, in my view, I think there's some product coming to Temporal Forces. If you look at Pokemon Center, you look at the back end scrape. There's more than 20,000 boxes sitting in their point of sale system, in their inventory system. And my theory is that's because part of their staging to send this to distribution kind of rolls into the same system. So I'm anticipating that temporal is going out next for everything. But I mean, Twilight has under 4,000 boxes on Pokemon Center. I have no idea what the hell is going to happen when that thing sells out. I mean, it's going to be a $200 box virtually overnight. Stellar Crown's up at 130. Stellar Crown is at my absolute favorite set because it is the absolute last set that's going to get reprinted. So, the old saying, a rising tide lifts all boats. We're in the middle of a rising tide. And again, it's due to the fact that Pokemon doesn't want to damage the brand. It's actually net positive for the boxes to overheat a little bit. You have people looking at these sets and saying, oh shit, well, we just watched this happen with Sword and Shield. I don't want to miss the boat. Coupled with, some of the other indie games are kind of faltering a little bit. And, people have some money. The economy's doing well, rates reasonably well, depending on pockets. Rates are starting to come down a little bit. And, you have crypto at over $100,000 because you had to have an anti-regulation candidate win versus regulate everything so the government can watch your every move and take every penny you have. And then you have surging that's up 48% since then. So, when we talk about 2025, I think everybody has to be cognizant of those two main drivers. We're not getting back to $100 booster boxes because Pokemon's not going to let that happen. Even in a bad set, if it stagnates for a couple months, there's not going to be enough product out there. And quite honestly, there's so much new demand coming in asking for product from distribution. All the Pokemon Company has to do is hold the line and keep production the same. The allocations are going to come down a little bit because it's going to be spread to a wider net, and everything's going to take care of itself. I don't think you can go wrong buying anything right now. Pokemon, obviously, booster boxes are king. I think Pokemon Center ETBs, once Shroud of Fable are gone, that play's probably over. And the reason I say that is I would imagine Pokemon Center is just going to start printing the shit out of them. I could be wrong. I mean, I'm still going to continue to buy them. But, look at Shroud of Fable. Shroud of Fable is never going to get a reprint. But the ETBs are at $38 on TCG Player. I've talked a couple times where I'd buy a couple hundred cases of it if I could get it at $25 each. But it's kind of dead money for now. And, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's not dead money. I mean, there's a lot of volume, a lot of supply on TCG Player. But at some point, it's probably going to be the lowest printed set in all of Scarlet and Violet. So, you look at these, you look at the prices, and, none of the sets are bad. Obsidian Flames, in my view, is kind of shitty, but it's Charizard set. It's going to do well. So, I know this is a little cliche, but yeah, you probably want to buy the laggards because ultimately all this stuff is going to continue to go up. And, you look at SV Base and Paldea Evolved, they'll probably have some more printing or some more product come to market, but it's not going to be a massive dump like we saw in the Sword and Shield era. And quite honestly, where the prices are going, it's going to get eaten up in 3 seconds. It really is. So, want to spend some time just talking about some concepts for 2025. Everybody's out there saying, well, buy this, buy that. You don't know, what you're buying, but you don't know why you're buying it other than, hey, the price is going to go here, it's going to go to the moon. Really what you need to understand is the Pokemon Company has changed their direction. I shouldn't say change because I don't think the overprinting in COVID was intentional. I think they were just shooting in the dark and they misread the market, which everybody did. But they want the boxes to have value. They're not going to overprint. And at the same time, there is a ton of money coming in because people see, relatively inexpensive boxes in Scarlet and Violet, and they just saw this movie with Sword and Shield. So, if prices dip, buy the sets. If you like them, buy the sets. But the worst thing that you can do is sit here and expect a massive reprint to come and smash the price because there's zero chance that happens. So, all right, guys, like, subscribe, please subscribe. It helps the channel, and join the Discord. I know we had a couple big hits earlier today with some larger sites putting out discounted pre-orders for Prismatic Evolution. So we have a nice little crowdsourced group going on. So, all right, guys, enjoy your Saturday night.